Greetings, brothers and sisters. So this is real-time hypocrisy. Very seldom do I get such a gift. This is from Jimmy Kimmels. So Jimmy Kimmel's doing a bit on Mike Lindell. And, you know, the guy who does the My Pillow stuff that's a Trumper. And he's starting his own network, his own social media network for right-wing people. And I'm not a right-winger or a Trumper, and Mike Lindell is kind of goofy, but at least Mike Lindell is sincere. Like, I believe Mike Lindell is sincere because his business has taken somewhat of a hit since he has come out as a Trumper. He has gotten a lot of negative feedback, and, like I said, he's kind of goofy, and I don't, he's, he's a right-wing truther, and I talk about how difficult right-wing truthers are in the so-called truth community, but at least he's sincere. And Jimmy Kimmel, well, let's just get into it here.
Menacingly in your home. Who would buy this? I mean, besides me, who would buy this? The only person crazy enough to pay $40 for a life-size Mike Lindell is Mike Lindell. Why would he?
So he's saying he's crazy, right? He goes into how crazy he is and how, all these people who believe what he believes is crazy. This is the whole narrative of crazy conspiracy theorists, right, that they've been pushing for a while. But then there's this moment coming up.
Why is he starting these websites? You're a former crack addict who somehow made millions of dollars selling pillows.
Wait, what did you just say?
Starting these websites. You're a former crack addict who somehow made millions of dollars selling pillows. Sell pillows. Why isn't
a former crack addict? Kablam! You know what? You just had a famous former crack addict that you just slathered all over him. So this is a guy who's just an a-hole, right? He is he's sort of a Don Rickles model comedian, and he goes after people. He's got the mean tweets. He's got all these things he does, stealing candy, have parents film the reaction when they told their kids that they've eaten all their Halloween candy and watching the kids cry and getting enjoyment out of that. I mean, this is just a mean, nasty person, right? And he does this stuff in the guise of comedy, a gatekeeper. His shows in Freemasonic Hall. And then he pulls in this guy who is a, vice president's son who's a former crack addict, which has got so much comedy value. Hunter Biden is hilarious, and there's just a lot of material that Hunter Biden brings to all of us that's funny, right? Hunter Biden's presence as a son of a groping, sniffling, snoozling father who's, a bumbling sort of, he's always been the Ed McMahon, right? He was the Ed McMahon to Barack Obama. He was the F-up, right? He was the screw-up. Joe Biden was. And then he has an even worse son who's even a bigger screw-up than him, right? And he's a former crack addict. And this guy is ragging on Mike Lindell. Well, let's look at it here.
And for me, it was really important to be completely honest about the entire experience. But
you're just so brave, Hunter. You're such a brave man coming forward with this book that is, that's supposed to do damage control for your screw up father and his, and his dementia-ridden presidency.
It certainly was not a how-to manual.
No, but it is a very vivid and detailed description of what it feels like to use crack. Yeah. You're a former crack addict who somehow made millions of dollars. Yeah. And I mean, I've not used crack, but I do feel like I understand it now. And you're a former crack addict who somehow made millions of dollars.
And now he just, he's got compassion for the people who struggle with addiction and crack addiction. And he wouldn't come out and use it as a joke going after, some former crack addict that made a success out of his life by selling pillows. He wouldn't do that sort of thing. Like, he wouldn't use, crack as a way to, he wouldn't weaponize crack to go after Mike Lindell just, a week later. Kablow! This hypocrisy. Wonderful bit of hypocrisy.
The hypocrisy, as it always seems to be, is off the charts here.
You're a former crack addict who somehow made millions of dollars.
All you do is live in a lot of guilt and a lot of shame.
Yeah, and also it's very difficult for, I mean, listen, we know you've had a hard life. There's no question about it. You're a former crack addict who somehow made millions of dollars.
He's had a hard life right from the beginning. He has all these, I mean, it's so hard for this guy. Of course he became a crack addict. But Mike Lindell, go sell pillows, crack addict. Right?
From when you were very young, tragedy struck your family, and of course, it's easy to draw lines from this to that or whatever, but there definitely is a chemical element to addiction, and
yeah, that's not true. Like people say, brain chemistry. There's no such thing as brain chemistry. Your blood and everything in your body is fluid, right? And so people say, oh, it's altering my brain chemistry. Well, I mean, your brain has, your brain is an organ, right? But it's not chemistry. Your whole body's connected. And there's some skaras, which is spiritual in nature, which I've talked about from the Heartfulness Meditation, impressions you've taken from a previous existence, addictions and things, which is, the real reason that people end up falling into this sort of pit of despair and, addictions and all these things, because of a previous existence and impressions that have been left behind. People would, he'll never, that's a little bit over his head, but he's excusing Hunter's, he's being really compassionate with Hunter, but Mike Lindell, just go sell pillows, crack addict.
And these things that you went through were horrible things that you went through. And, but there were also some, I thought, very interestingly positive things, like you're a former crack addict who somehow made millions of dollars.
So this is the tone of the interview. He makes no jokes at his expense, which he always does. He always rags on celebrities. He's always poking fun at people, belittling them. I mean, that's what he does. He's a Don Rickles comedian, a gatekeeper, somebody that has a lot of humiliation happens in these chairs on this ex-Freemasonic hall. This used to be a Freemasonic temple of Hollywood that is now his studio. And so a lot of rituals go on here. And this one is where he's just slathering all over Hunter Biden, who's a complete screw-up. And never mind the deals and the money he made to support his crack addiction. This is Hunter Biden's character right here. Arkansas woman impregnated by Hunter Biden was Washington, D.C. stripper called Dallas, which is funny. That's funny. That's funny, Jimmy Kimmel. A stripper named Dallas that he impregnated from Arkansas. That is just absolutely hilarious. Serial sniffler, snoozler, groper, Joe Biden's even bigger screw-up son, who's a crackhead and has made millions of dollars off of Joe Biden's name, was in D.C. in these VIP rooms and strip clubs smoking crack, and he hooked up with a stripper named Dallas, who happens to be from Arkansas, which is just hilarious in itself, and he fathered an Arkansas stripper baby. Like, just saying it makes me feel giddy, right? I mean, whether you're Republican or Democrat or independent or anybody, like you don't care about politics, Arkansas stripper baby fathered by Hunter Biden is hilarious. Hunter Biden ignores deadline to submit financial documents in child support case. So he fathered this baby, and he refused to take responsibility for it. And that was like the first piece. He said, no, I didn't do it, when he did do it. Judge denies Hunter Biden's bid to delay child support deposition. And what this was, Hunter Biden, then there was DNA testing, which Hunter Biden knew that this was his baby, but it was in the middle of a presidential campaign. So he tried to delay taking responsibility for this act. Again, he's on Jimmy Kimmel. This is February 27, 2020. So just a year later, right? I mean, this is like he was being like a complete scumbag, about all of this stuff for over, like, I don't know, until they made him pay child support and take responsibility. Like, he didn't do it willingly. And he impregnated his wife. His wife had a baby like the very next year. And so this is somebody who's fathered a baby and then has another baby with a woman that he tells her he loves her after an hour of meeting her into some, restaurant, and proposes to her a week later, which is addict behavior. And so this guy hasn't recovered. He's being celebrated on Jimmy Kimmel like he's beat his crack addiction. And one of the steps, the 12 steps, is taking responsibility for the people you hurt, like, the stripper and her illegitimate baby, which he didn't do. So he hasn't gone through the 12 steps. He hasn't done the work. Like, he just wrote this book to do damage control because this guy's an absolute mess. And Jimmy Kimmel, who has all this comedy fodder in this guy, all these late night comedy hosts that are leaving Hunter Biden alone with his Arkansas stripper baby, his crack addict. I mean, all these things are hilarious, right? He's a son of a president. He's like the worst screw up in history. There's this screw up position that's there, one of the kids or grandkids of a president. There's always the screw up. There's always the one that's a little bit wild. And the media loves going after those guys. But they're giving Hunter Biden a complete pass, right? Hunter Biden paternity case ends in settlement with Arkansas woman. So this is March of 2020, about a year and a month ago. And he finally agreed to it only because he had to, right? And he didn't want to disclose how much money he made, his finances, because he thought it might be scrutinized. He thought maybe there was a real media and it would be scrutinized by the media, which of course it wasn't, because the media sucks, right? But, he's got to pay child support, and they won't publish how much it is because that would mean how much Hunter Biden makes as a crackhead, right? He's making millions of dollars a year in all these various jobs and this, his relationship with China and these things. And he's smoking crack and banging strippers and, all this stuff he writes about in the book was all going on in 2019 and 20. And then he met this woman and supposedly sobered up and became a painter, right? He just, goes from being a crack addict to being a painter who, his paintings aren't horrible, but they're not good. They're not, professional level. And he's had an art show, right? Like talk about white male privilege and the political privilege of the rich here. So to understand this is the same time we heard about Kobe Bryant. Finally stepping up, Hunter Biden settles support case. I was a mess. Hunter Biden doesn't remember meeting ex-stripper who he fathered a child with during addiction struggle. There she is. This is the Arkansas stripper. And she, DC strip club. I'm not proud of it. It's why I would later challenge it in court. The woman from Arkansas had a baby in 2018 and claimed the child was mine. I had no recollection of the encounter. So she, this happened in sometime in 2017, right? So Biden served on the board of Burisma Holdings, one of the largest private natural gas producers in the Ukraine, from 2014 until his term expired in 2019. So he had the baby, right, the stripper baby in 2018, and then he has another child, I guess, in 2019 or 20. So he's got a baby and a 2-year-old, and one of them is an Arkansas stripper baby. And he was doing all this stuff while he was on the board of Burisma.
You're a former crack addict who somehow made millions of dollars.
When you're out and being a crack addict and you're on the Hollywood Boulevard and you're in Washington, D.C. strip clubs and New York strip clubs and you're spending, thousands upon thousands, $10,000 a night in these strip clubs and the VIP rooms, going through crack and having all these relationships. And then you have one of these cushy jobs as a, board member. Like the Ukraine would never even think of firing him. They knew what was going on. Like he wasn't, dropping off laptops that have all these, inappropriate pictures and emails and texts on them and, not remembering that he did it. Like he didn't even remember meeting a woman, banging her and fathering a child with her. And then, he denies child support based in his saying that he was too messed up on crack. And yet he had this job where he was making $50,000 a month, right? A yearly salary for so many people. The average U.S. salary is $31,000 a year as of 2019. Hunter Biden was making that and $20,000 more a month, right? And so he's making millions of dollars for a job he doesn't deserve just because his dad was vice president. And they expect something for that money. This money that they're giving him so he can go be a crackhead and father stripper babies. Hunter Biden will step down from board of Chinese firm, his attorney says. And these guys are going to do their due diligence. They're going to find out what kind of guy Hunter is. And so he left his Burisma job to go work for a Chinese firm where he gets another cushy job while he still is smoking crack, right? Hunter Biden child support is finalized with his stripper baby mama after he tried to use the coronavirus crisis as an excuse to avoid going to Arkansas. Hunter Biden finalized the agreement. He will pay an undisclosed amount in monthly child support. His wife, Melissa Cohen, is due to give birth in weeks, and Hunter said it would be extremely dangerous for her and their newborn to be exposed to the coronavirus threat because, he didn't want to travel to Arkansas, using that as an excuse, and the coronavirus was the catch-all for the Bidens. Hunter Biden is the biological and legal father of the child with the former stripper, Judge Rules. Joe Biden, our most important Thanksgiving tradition. He talked about family, and there he is pictured with his family. Let's take a look at it. They're on a Freemasonic floor. There's Joe. There's his wife. One of these women is his daughter. There's Hunter. There's his new wife that he fell in love with in an hour in some diner or whatever place. There's their new baby. There's a variety of grandkids here, and none of them is Hunter Biden's illegitimate stripper child. Joe, you're a decent guy. We always hear what a decent guy you are. What about, Joe, what about Hunter Biden's stripper child? Are you going to acknowledge the stripper baby from Arkansas? Are you ever going to meet that baby? It has Biden blood. It's part of your family, right? There's a baby out there with the Biden name, or at least, the Biden DNA out there sniffling and snoozling and groping out there in babyland. You're going to own up to that baby. You're going to meet that baby. You're going to bring that baby into your family. You're going to love that baby and all these things, because of this guy right here. Is Hunter going to be a part of the baby's life? Is he going to help raise the baby? Is he going to fly down to Arkansas, go to, I don't know, some Little League game, watching his son play T-ball or something, right? Is Joe Biden going to invite the Arkansas crack baby to Christmas and Thanksgiving and all? Are they going to take an interest in this kid? Is the kid going to be a part of the Biden clan? And so, but Mike Lindell is a crack addict, right?
You're a former crack addict who somehow made millions of dollars.
Mike Lindell is a crack addict who lucked out into selling pillows, right? This guy has had all the privileges, white male privilege, of being this career politician, horrible politician who lied about his own family. Like he said, his family were coal miners because he plagiarized his speech. I mean, that's how he got outed his first presidential campaign. He ran for president 3 times. He polled under 1%. America didn't want him. He had a credibility issue. He was a gaffe magnet, and he's a snoozler and groper and all these things. But somehow they decided that he was the best guy to take on Trump, and so they manufactured all the conditions, including, basically rigging the Democratic primary against Bernie Sanders, who had actual support. And then they put Kamala Harris on the ticket, who withdrew. She polled under 1% and had to drop out. She didn't even get a vote cast for her because she withdrew from the race before the first primary. So you got 2 people that the Democrats didn't even like. And Joe Biden is now president, and they all talk about what a great guy and decent guy he is. The media is giving him cover. And hitman Jimmy Kimmel is praising Hunter Biden. And, what about the stripper baby, JoJo? Like, why don't you acknowledge the stripper baby? CDC raises eyebrow for using character image almost identical to the NPC meme, non-player character meme, and then the CDC uses this same character in one of their ad campaigns. And my wife and I were talking about this. I've been talking about this now for a while, and I really didn't have a good term for it. But now there's this term, hopefully I'll remember and use it, the NPCs. Like, the world is full of NPCs. That's why Joe Biden could be elected president, because there's NPCs, non-player characters that are completely, just oblivious. They don't have any they're just extras out there. They don't have really any purpose. They're just walking around completely dumb and, oblivious to what's going around, bumping into stuff, and they're, not affecting the environment, right? They're oblivious to everything. They just do whatever they're told to do. They're not having any sort of original thoughts, or they don't do any research. I mean, this is people even in the truth community who think that they're woke. I mean, you have all these people that thinking they're woke, and they're really just NPCs, right? Like the video game controllers know how to work these people. They know how to get them to just go along with everything. You know, like they know exactly how a certain number of people are going to react to a news story. They know how to roll out the COVID thing. They know how to work these people into doing, being completely submissive and, putting on masks or whatever. I mean, I was talking about this the other day. There's all these liberal people who are responsible for so much good things in terms of organic food, right? People who are herbalists, and they didn't really trust the medical community and maybe not the government so much. And, they were really healthy, very concerned about what they're putting into their bodies, and, not trusting the mainstream food system or medical system. And then they roll out Trump and the Trumpers are against masks and, whatever else. And these liberals who are completely about alternative healthcare just put on the mask, right? They get the Band-Aid on their arm, and they're just, willing to go with everything because they're NPCs, right? Oh, well, Trump, those are Trumpers, so I'm not going to, anything that they say, I'm going to do the opposite of, right? Anything that Trump and his supporters say, I'm going to do the opposite. And the same thing with Republicans and, these conservative people who say the same thing about liberals or Joe Biden or Obama or whoever it is, right? They're just, oppositional. They get into their little demographic NPC group where they're walking around like zombies, and they just follow the other zombies. And they see there's another group of zombies. There's two groups of zombies, and they just do what their group of zombies does, and their group of zombies just do the opposite. Their group of NPCs just do the opposite of what the other group of NPC does, right? They don't have any thoughts. They don't have any, spiritual identity. They're not trying to connect to God. They're not trying to, figure out what life's about, and they're just blindly going through life, right? And, I've talked about the heartfulness meditation, and I mean, there's lots of NPCs that do the meditation, even though they can be a sovereign spirit, even though, they can connect to God directly and get information from God and see things in a new way. They just choose to walk around like an NPC. I mean, it's about really committing to opening yourself up and being, humble enough and aware enough to understand that you don't know anything, even though you knew more than you did yesterday. You still know, collectively less than there is to know, right? Like your knowledge is a grain of sand on the beach, and so then you get another grain of sand, so now you have two grains of sands, and all right, you know twice as much as what you used to know, but you still have all this vast amount of knowledge and experience to go through. But you've made it. Now go bump into something, NPC, right? I mean, it's just a sad state of affair. The NPCs are just out there. There's so many of them. As far as my approach to it, I give out information here, and I talk. The heartfulness meditation is a vehicle to connect to God. And again, it's not just joining the organization. You have to do it, and you have to, be a part of it. There's so many people who do the heartfulness meditation. There's all these predictions and prophecies about having to work with your hands in the future, and about how the system is going to collapse. And I mean, vast prophecies and predictions, and, telling people what's going to happen. And all these people who read the same things, read this just like I did, totally didn't do anything about it. They didn't try to, embrace these teachings and realize that they're going to have to prepare themselves and their kids for changes that are coming up. Tumultuous events, right? Upheavals. The word upheavals are used over in time. There's going to be all these upheavals. But let's not prepare for those things. And then criticize me for preparing, right? Criticizing me from actually believing in what's being said and having faith in, Babaji and the masters of the system. When I started doing the heartfulness system and I realized it worked, I mean, it really worked. And the more I did it, the more I could see it was really good, right? It really worked. I started to listen and heed the words of the teachings and started to, follow my internal connection, follow my heart, and, use the system, use the techniques, right? I mean, this has been very effective for me. And so I've changed my life in so many ways based in the system, in subtle ways and sometimes profound ways, and, all across the board. And so when I read these other teachings, I knew this stuff was going to happen. I could see the writing on the wall. So I started to make changes, my family and I, and things like this, and continually, do this, right? Advancing my skill level and teaching my kids that, they're going to have to learn to survive outside the system we're 100% dependent on. And even so many of you, like people in the truth community, you see the system collapsing. You see the, degradation, and then just, not doing anything about it, right? Not preparing yourself, not making any sort of mental adjustment, waiting for the great pumpkin to swoop in and rescue you or whatever it is. That's being an NPC, right? Then you're not, what value do you have? You're just walking around as an extra in your own life, right? The NPCs, beware the NPCs. Only spirituality will save this world, NPCs. It's Paul Romano, definitely pointing from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.